Hi, I am Bushan Jalali. You are watching Economy by Bushan Jalali, a subset of Nancy Foundations. Today we have chosen a topic called Industrial Policy History of India. So, to know what are the different policies adopted by India post independence. Here we go. On the eve of independence, the then government of India had a daunting task of combating hunger, disease, shortage of food grains, healthcare, along with problem of industries, problem of infrastructure, problem of technology, problem of higher education. Because all these things, these require a high capital investment, and unfortunately the colonial period government avoided investing in these important areas. So immediately upon the independence from the British, the Indian planners decided to have industrial sector as the prime moving force of our economy. So there were two options. One was to have industrial sector as the prime moving force. Second was the agriculture sector. Since it was the order of the day prevailing at that times across the globe that industrial sector was taken as a prime moving force. Now the question is, what is prime moving force? Every economy or every country in the world declare as per their geopolitical, geo-economic conditions, they declare some sector as a prime moving force of their economy. The prime moving force means it is that particular sector which can drive the substantial portion of the entire economy. The impact of that sector has multifaceted impacts, multiplier impacts on the economy. So, immediately after independence, the government, the economists were of the view that industrial sector will be the prime moving force of India. Fine. So immediately they started planning for how to develop our industrial sector. So in 1948 we had a first industrial policy resolution. What was there in the policy? They delineated that India will have a mixed economy. At the same time, they delineated that the state means the government will play the role of entrepreneur and the regulator. Because of the poverty, lack of financial assets, lack of technology, lack of purchasing power within the population, So it was decided that let the state government take the role as an entrepreneur as well as a regulator. So what they did, they classified the activities into central list and the state list. In the central list, they placed coal sector, power, railways, civil aviation, arms and ammunition, defense, extra. When you talk about central list, that means the manufacturing process, the development of this process was kept the responsibility of the union government. And the second was the state list. For states, they kept in the list that medium industries as at that time were like paper, medicines, textiles, cycle, auto rickshaws, two wheelers, etc. etc. Private sector was kept other than these two, other than the center and state list, that was kept for the private sector. This was the first industrial policy of 1948 with the condition that this system will prevail and it will be reviewed after 10 years. So in 1956 came under industrial policy, which really was the actual industrial policy, meaningful industrial policy, while they made some specific decisions. What was that? It was a decision of reservation of industries. It was a decision of licensing of the industries, and it was a decision of making agriculture as a priority sector. These were the larger policy decisions as per industrial policy resolution of 1956. So they reserved about 17 industries which will be exclusively run by union government. That is placed in Schedule A. They are even now called Schedule A industries. These 17 industries further expanded and ultimately it culminated into 254 industries which we nowadays call public sector undertakings or public sector enterprise. Then in Schedule B, we have mixed those activities, those in economic activities, those in the industrial activities, where you can have both public and private. They have been mentioned in the Schedule B. They were at that time around 12 industries. Subsequently, it increased. And Schedule C, that was exclusively meant for private industries. Because in 1956, the country was having generally a closed economy. So we had closed and socialistic economy, although mixed economy. So we had little scope for little activities in Schedule C. This was about the reservation. Suppose if I am a person, if I am an entrepreneur, I want to do some particular type of activity, say railways or something like atomic energy, something like mining. So it was coal mines. The private sector was not permitted. It was not accorded license. So for that, it was exclusively meant for the state. So far as licensing is concerned, and secondly, every industrial activity and every product was supposed to have the license for what? For manufacturing, that too in a particular area and in a particular product only. For example, today I am manufacturing some particular type of mobile set or television set. License was granted only a one product of the mobile or one product type of the television. Suppose the owner tomorrow wants to modify it and manufacture a modified version, new brand, a new model of the product. He couldn't do it because he had to get it again license for that new product also. That is why subsequently that regime was known as license Raj. Everything you should have a license. Suppose you are working in, say, you have factory in Delhi or in Punjab, and now you want to open one more branch of that factory in, say, nearby state. So then your license having in previously that won't work for another place. So you have to get another license for the new place. That is called location wise. That was prevailing at that time. These all were run by mostly by public sector undertakings. That's why they were flourishing also. That's why then Prime Minister, he used to call it as a temples of modern India, because government was investing, government was running the industries, people were having employment in the industries, there was a good development also of the industries. So they were called as the temples of modern India. And second focus was only on heavy industries. This was the policy decision in 1956 policy resolution. One more decision was there, emphasis on small scale industries and khadi and village industries. This was the main policy decisions of 1956. And further they also decided to have agriculture a priority sector. Priority sector means those sector where the private sector or the normal system prevailing is not being given due attention. For example, agriculture and agriculture financing, rural area financing, these were not attended by the banks. So government declared it as a priority sector and accordingly had the policy that banks must finance certain percentage of their credit to this priority sector. So agriculture was pledged as a priority sector. Now, since I told you that this policy came from 1956, it was for reservation and license. Suppose I have a license, I would become the owner or king of that product. So my pricing, my availability of product of that particular product for the masses depended entirely on my monopoly. So there was a problem of price rise. There's a problem of inflation. There was a problem of seasonal non-availability of goods. Number one. Number second, there was a problem of the expansion of industries at the whims and fancies of the already having the license holders. So they would not go to the areas which were backward, which were remote, they were underdeveloped. So this was the problem in that area, in that policy. Subsequently, after 1956, 1969, we had another industrial policy. In that policy, the government tried to address the issues which were evolved with previous policies, in particular 1956 policy, especially of what? Restrictive practices, inflation, monopoly, cutthroat competition. So government introduced for the first time Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, which is commonly called MRTP Act. Under this MRTP Act, government ensured that those concerns which at that time were having assets more than 25 crores have to necessarily take additional and strict permission from the government for any further expansion, any further locational change, for any further modification in their product. They had to seek the approval of the government. That was called, and that is under MRTP Act. So that the owners of the factories don't resort to restrictive practices or monopoly practices. This limit was subsequently enhanced to 100 crores, and now post 90 this was abolished. Then come again industrial policy statement in 1973. Under this policy, it was for the first time that core industries were identified. There were certain industries which were declared as a core industry. That means core industry means that particular industry, that particular set of industries which are the basic industries. If you want to manufacture anything, you should have steel. If you want to manufacture car, if you want to manufacture any machinery, you need to have steel. So steel is the core industry. You want to have some construction, you should have the cement. So cement is the core industry. You should have the petroleum, you should have the electricity. These have been declared as core industries. That was under industrial policy statement of 1973. 6 core industries are declared throughout the globe. How many? 6. But in India we have 8 core industries, or we can say we have 8 basic industries, or we can say we have 8 infrastructure industries. क्या क्या है वो? Those are iron and steel. Number 1. Number 2, cement. 3, coal. 4, crude oil. 4th, oil refining and electricity. Or 6. Then additional 2 is natural gas and fertilizers. These were the 8 core industries which are as of now also there. They have been primarily declared 6 under industrial policy resolution of statement of 1973. Again, with the passage of time, government started realizing that to have a strict closed economy, it is getting very difficult for industrial development because India was not having good technology. So import of technology was felt necessary, because up till that date India was so secure about the foreigners because of the East India Company Act that we were trying not to allow foreigners to invest here, and it was strict closed economy. But realizing that it is very difficult to run the show without importing technologies, so government started importing technologies. So they allowed certain people, entrepreneurs, to import technology, under which act? That is called FERA, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act of 1973. But this act was so strict, it was very cumbersome and very difficult to get the RBI permission, government permission for importing certain technologies, certain goods to our country, to enable our industrialists to develop certain products to make better goods for the public or for exporters. But anyway, it was started in 1973 that we implemented FERA. Then in 1977, just 4 years after this, there was a change in government. There was a Morarji Desai government. Because as you know, in India, when there is a change in government, one government it tries to reverse or nullifies the policies of the previous government. The same way in 1977, the then government they took a stand against the Indira government decisions. That means against the importing of technologies from outside. They made it so strict that virtually it was near impossible to import technologies from outside. Instead of that, what did they do? They laid emphasis on village industries, decentralization of industries, setting up district industry center. So that region, that government at that time in 1977, it was the policy of the government to focus on village industries. Reservation or doing industries only by the union government, they decentralized it. So they issued district industry centers where they would facilitate the industrialists to start the entrepreneurship. Then in 1980, again government changed. That again the industrial policy was changed, but under that policy, government allowed import of technology from outside. That is called foreign investment. They allowed foreign investment. Till then, foreign investment was not allowed. But from 1980, India allowed foreign investment. But why? How? That is called technology transfer route. This means suppose they want to make the automobile industry. They want to make some aeroplane. They allowed the foreign investors to come to India but bring and share the technology with us. Then only we will allow you to have foreign investment in our country, which is not the case as on today. But in 1980, it was for the first time that the foreign investment through technology transfer. We will allow you to invest if you transfer technology. That was allowed. Then ultimately in 1991 is the landmark history in the Indian economy history of India. Why? Till now what we have read about reservation, licensing, all these or closed economies, all these have been cancelled. What India did as per new industrial policy of 1991, which we also call LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization. In a generic term we call it LPG. First they started de-reservation of industries. They said it is not reserved for the center or state, everybody is allowed to do whatever he wants. But they kept only two partially reserved industries. One is atomic energy and nuclear research, and second is partially railways, जहाँ रिजर्वेशन है. दूसरा है second is licensing. They did de-licensing of industries. You don't require to have any license except 5 industries. कौन? Aerospace and defense related industries, defense related electronics, not industries. Defense related electronics, although इसमें भी अब थोड़ा relaxation देने लगे हैं. And second is gunpowder, industrial explosives and detonating fuses. For the manufacture of these items you need to have a license as on date also. And third is dangerous chemicals. And fourth is tobacco, cigarette and related products. These also need, this is called sin goods. These also need license. And last is the alcoholic drinks. These are the only 5 or 6 industrial activities where one needs to have a license. So we remember that as per industrial policy of 1991, or we can say since LPG, there is dereservation of industries, there is delicensing of industries, and third is abolition of MRTP Act. MRTP Act was primarily, it was for an act which would address the complaints raised by other business community or other consumers for the monopolistic or restrictive practices adopted by the business people, by the entrepreneurs. So it was felt that such act acts as a detrimental to the development of the industrial activities, so they abolished this MRTP Act. Instead of this MRTP Act, the government introduced, we call that Competition Commission of India. Number one. Number two, Consumer Protection Act of India. So these two acts have been introduced to replace Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, MRTP Act. Just to address some genuine complaints from the public or from business houses. For these, we have now these two Competition Commission of India and this Consumer Protection Act for unfair trade practices. Again, FERA, which was considered to be not liberal, rather that was considered to be draconian act, that has been now repealed, and instead of FERA, now we have FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act. This is considered to be the liberal for imports as well as exports. Suppose you want to import certain technology, certain goods, certain machinery, anything from abroad, you would liberally get the permission, you will liberally get the foreign exchange for it to import whatever you want for the production purposes in the economy. And the same way you can export whatever you want, logical things to develop your export business. So we can say FERA has been replaced by FEMA. Now, do you know you have about the this we call that exim secrepus. How capital goods were financed. The system prevailing in that was only that exporter was allowed to import capital goods who would export his items first. Then for export the items, he would get certain percentage of his export value as an incentive from the government. That incentive was called exim secrepus. That was like a paper certificate. Okay, you have exported goods worth 10 crore rupees. We give you 1 crore as an exim secrepus. एक letter देते थे. That letter you could, that 10 crore, that 1 crore, that percentage you could use to pay the import duty on your imports. So you could import the capital goods or any goods, machinery, any technology from abroad. This is called exim secrepus. This was, now we reach it around 2020. Then in 2021, we had one more industrial policy that was regarding manufacture of e-vehicles, electric vehicles. For that we had FEMA 1, FEMA 2. For that purposes, government gave an incentive to the manufacturers of electric vehicles as well as to generate the demand for electric vehicles. They give certain incentives, certain subsidies certain incentives to the buyers also. That would range from 10% to 40%. As on date, the buyers of e-vehicles are getting discounts or incentives to the tune of 40%, which is borne by the government. It is just to generate the demand for the manufacturers of the electric vehicles. That is called faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles, FAME 1 and FAME 2. Purpose क्या है? What is the objective? Demand creation, technology platform, इसका pilot project, charging infrastructure. The biggest challenge for this electric vehicle is that you should have charging infrastructure. You should have charges the way we have petrol pumps for refueling. The same way we are also having charging stations. So accordingly, they set initially some target for two-wheelers, three-wheelers, passenger four-wheelers, light commercial vehicles, buses. So this has been extended up to 2024 again by the government. This was regarding electric vehicles. Now comes to MSME, micro, small and medium enterprises. This is the backbone of an economy. Why? This sector, MSME sector, contributes about 50% to the manufacturing output of our country, more than 40% of the exports, and around 28% of the GDP. So in this context, government, as what the policy of the government was, they changed the definition of the MSMEs. MSME means micro, small and medium enterprise. Why they changed the definition? Because they enhanced the definition so that more and more units come under this segment. Why? Because under this segment there are certain facilities, certain incentives, certain advantages given to these micro and small industries, so that more and more people come and establish their own units, thereby promoting GDP as well as promoting employment, generating employment. Because MSME sector is one of the, after agriculture, MSME sector is the second largest provider of employment. So what was the policy? They changed the definition of micro enterprise. That is, a unit is said to be a micro enterprise if its investment in plant and machinery is less than 1 crore or the annual turnover is less than 5 crore. That unit should be classified as micro unit. The same way, we have small industries, small enterprise. Those enterprises whose investment in plant and machinery is more than 1 crore up to less than 10 crore and turnover is less than 50 crores annual, that unit will be declared as a small industry or a small enterprise. Medium is that whose turnover is more than, whose investment in plant and machinery is more than 10 crore and investment is up to 50 crores. And annual turnover is less than 250 crores. These units have been classified as what? As micro, small and medium. Now say, why did the government liberalize these entitlements? Because it is felt that there are certain MSMEs, despite they are of good age means who have been already doing the business for the last about 10 years or more, but still they are not coming out of this micro and small and medium, they are not growing up. We call that they are dwarf firms. Why? Sometimes these giving of incentives becomes a problem. So previously there was a small industry having 100 employees in establishment. If the number of employees crosses 100, they used to have more compliances of labor laws. They had to give certain facilities to the staff. So the company owners, the factory owners didn't want to part with those expenses for maintenance of labor laws, maintenance of these welfare schemes, some union activities. So they preferred to be small in size despite having good age. We call that dwarf. So in order to, and number one, number two, they were not also generating employment also, because when they prefer to be below 100, so the government changed certain laws, certain rules. They enhanced this rule from 100 to 300 straightway. They they changed the value of investment in plant and machinery, so that the factory owners would invest more and more in their concern. At the same time, for a larger number of employees, they don't have to do for more compliances. They don't have to do more burden, which will facilitate them for generating employment, for recruiting more people, which in turn will generate employment and people will get the income. So that was the purpose behind this policy of enhancing the criteria limit for micro, small and medium enterprises. Secondly, one more incentive for this is that government has made it mandatory for central ministries, government departments, whatever purchases they have to do, minimum of 25% they have to purchase from these micro and small enterprises, just to encourage these, just to boost these micro and small entrepreneurs for going for this in economic activities. Number third, any tender sought by the government whose value is up to 200 crores, in those tenders foreign investors were not allowed, foreign contractors were not allowed to bid for that contract. That means up to 200 amount of contract, only local Indian contractors were allowed to offer their bids. The same way we have one more policy that is called disinvestment. ये सारा हम we are studying history right from 47 to as on date, how the policies of the government changed, especially with regard to industries. So initially they started with converting private into public. Now they are now disinvesting. Government is disinvesting in public sector enterprises which were owned by the government. Now here we have 2 points. One word is disinvestment, second word is privatization. What is the difference? So aspirants, please note it. Privatization means where there is a disinvestment, yani ki government sells its share more than 50% from the public sector enterprise. When it sells its more than 50% share, that means it loses its management rights in that public sector enterprises. That means this enterprise has now become a private sector. That means we have privatized this. So government may sell either more than 50% or entire. We will call that this enterprise has been privatized. Second word is disinvestment. Disinvestment means government has say 100% shares or 90% or 80% shares in some public sector enterprise. Now government wants to have some money out of this. It doesn't sell more than 50%. That means it wants to have its own control. It sells part of its shareholders, say shares, say 10%, 15%, 20%. so that it reduces its total equity, total shares from say 100%, 90% to 70%, 80%. So selling off part shares less than 50% means disinvestment. So nowadays you often find that the target for the government has kept that this year they will do disinvestment target for जैसे for example for this year 24-25 is 50,000 crore. That means government of India will sell its stake in public sector and enterprises to the tune of 50,000 crores. We have so many public sector enterprises where government is the owner, government is the majority owner. So partly they will sell, or maybe they will privatize also. Now what is the policy? Policy क्या है? The policy is public sector में ये है, they have classified the public sector enterprises into strategic and non-strategic sectors. The policy of the present government is that for non-strategic sectors they want to have the privatization. They want to sell it. They want to have more than 50% stake of the private sector. That means that concern will be managed by the private sector, which is considered to be more efficient and profitable. Fine. Second is non-strategic strategic sector. ये तो मैंने कहा non-strategic का. दूसरा है strategic sector. Strategic sector में है वहाँ they government keeps minimum, but it keeps certainly it keeps its stake there. Management role it keeps there. For example, atomic energy, space and defense, transport and telecommunication. Transport means railways and telecommunications, power, petroleum, coal and other minerals, rare earth minerals, and banking, insurance and financial services. These are called strategic sectors. Here government may allow private sector to be there, but doesn't extinct itself. It also plays a role there. It also has a stake there. इसमें एक concern, अगर we have one bank public sector enterprise, we can have another bank of private sector. So that tomorrow if they do some problem, okay, our public sector bank is also there. We can run the show. The same way is for atomic energy, space, defense, transport, telecommunication. We have telecom providers. We have both government as well as BSNL as well as private. Reliance है, बाकी है. Fine. Privatization के एक example देते हैं Air India. Air India it's entirely sold. Now there is no management, no stake of the government of India. That is called privatization. That won't be called disinvestment. Same policy regarding national monetization pipeline. This is the policy of industrialization. How policy of entrepreneurship. What policy? They monetize the assets. Suppose we have airports, railways, petroleum corporates. They have certain assets, land, especially land and building, which they are not using it. They are lying as it is. Or if using, it is not so efficiently. What under a national monetization plan? Government allows the private sector to use it, such terms and conditions. They can use it, they can make the payment lump sum, or they can make the payment just like a rent for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever are the terms and conditions. And after that, they will transfer back to the government. So under this national monetization policy, government was expecting 6,000 crores of assets worth to be mobilized within up to 2025, not within 4 years. 6 lakh crores of through core assets mobilizing. Just like I will give an example of airports. Now you have seen for the last for about 5-10 years, now almost all airports, now even big railway stations, they have monetized the assets. That is the building or the land nearer to the belonging to the railway station or airport authority, they are giving it to some private concerns. They are renovating it, they are developing it, and they are earning profits. And those profits are being shared, whatever are the terms and conditions, with the government. So they are taking advantage of their idle assets. This is called under National Monetization Program. Same way, labor reforms have been, there have been code, 4 labor codes have been just facilitate manufacturing industries. Ordnance factory, previously ammunition for India was manufactured, it was mainly imported. Whatever was manufactured in India, it was run by, we used to call that ordnance factory boards. That's why virtually defunct or loss making. Now they have, because they were run by the government, now they have corporatized that. That means the way the corporates function, they have made its management like that, and they have approved 7 new defense public sector undertakings. That means it will be away from the government, just like corporates. They will be answerable to the public, they will be answerable to the shareholders about the profitability. So they have, this is the policy decision. And secondly, क्या है, they have allowed foreign direct investment in defense from 74 up to 74% for this automatic route and 100% through government route. They have allowed policy decision regarding manufacturing of defense items. They have a target of a tremendous target of production worth $25 billion by 2025, out of which they have only achieved yet $15 billion, and they want to have export of $5 billion. So imagine the country which was having zero exports of defense goods have now, this year they have exported worth more than $2.5 billion. So they have a target of $5 billion of exports by 2025. Further, to boost the industrial sector, government has introduced a PLI scheme, Product Linked Incentive Scheme. Suppose if you are a manufacturer or if you are a foreign investor, government tells him, you come make in India for the world. Suppose last year you produced 1,000 quantities of some particular goods. Whatever additional you manufacture this year, we will provide you incentive to the tune of 4 to 6%. This is called product linked incentives. How many products you will enhance this year, that will be incentivized. This has resulted in increasing the manufacturing in India. This is called product linked incentive scheme. This has been entrusted in 14 industrial activities, especially sunrise and strategic sectors. डिफेंस में ये होता है, फार्मास्यूटिकल्स में ये होता है, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में ये है, सेमीकंडक्टर्स में ये है. The 14th is the, we call that white goods, ACs and LEDs. Government has, this is the policy of the government, to provide incentives for those entrepreneurs who invest and who manufacture these 14 items. These are strategic and sunrise activities. Especially इसमें सबसे ज़्यादा फोकस है electronic goods में, because it is the electronic goods which we import to a large extent from China and other countries. Secondly, we are more dependent, 100% dependent on chip industries, chips from abroad, China and Taiwan. Now, government has taken it seriously to ensure semiconductors making in India. So, for investing in semiconductors, there is a huge investment of $6 to $7 billion in one unit. So, government has provided, in that case also, product linked incentive scheme. The incentive goes to the tune of 1 crore, 2 crore of rupees. 25% of the investment in semiconductors. That means around $1 billion. This is the amount, this is the policy of the government how to boost this manufacturing of electronic items, especially semiconductors, where there is a potential tremendous potential for demand from India, and this is, we are, as on date, we are importing it 100%. Same way in coal mines they have allowed auctioning of coal to private people. Previously it was dominated by public sector and Coal India Limited. Now this year 91 coal mines have been auctioned. That's why you have seen for the last 2 years the extraction of coal has increased, and at the same time import of coal has reduced. Startup ecosystem. This is the policy of the government to boost startups, give them incentives. It may be from financing, it may be from taxation, it may be from product related insurance scheme, all sorts of these things. Bulk drug parks have been established for promotion of these things, pharmaceuticals. And last but not the least, national infrastructure pipeline. There is a target of 5 trillion economy, GDP of 5 trillion by 2024-25. This is the target of the India to achieve the economy of 5 trillion of for India. इसके लिए क्या है, आज से 4 साल पहले गवर्नमेंट हैज़ प्लान्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑफ टू द ट्यून ऑफ 111 lakh crores in different sectors. इसमें रोड्स, एनर्जी हर एक सेक्टर्स में है इसमें. So to facilitate India achieving the goal of 5 trillion economy. How they will manage? By public-private partnership. India is nowadays considered to be the second country in the world where public-private partnership has increased. What does that mean? They do joint venture with the private contractors, private investors, private entrepreneurs, government and the private entrepreneurs jointly invest. For example, we have to establish some college or some hospital. So we ask the private investor, you also invest here. But in certain cases, if the government tells them to you invest in some district which is relatively remote, then there is a viability problem. So to meet that challenge, government has come with a scheme that is called viability gap arrangement facility. जो viability में उसमें दिक्कत आती है, that is funded by some government. That is called viability gap funding. तो इसलिए क्या है, that is because of this reason that India is rated as the number 2nd in the world for public-private partnership. Last but not the least, we have one district, one product. अभी recently in budget में announce कर दिया कि that India will have unity malls, PM Ekta malls. What is it for? That the each district should have their own one local branded item which you can brand for rest of the country and for the globe. And for that each district or each state we should have, we call that unity mall, PM Ekta malls, where only these items of different districts which are identified of different district specialties, so they will be showcased there, and their items, their products will be branded like this for global or for pan India sale. This is all I have to share you about industrial policy history. यानी कि whatever were the different industrial policies from time to time till date, so that we can have a feel, but at the same time we have a concern also, especially for manufacturing sector. When we compare ourselves with China or Korea or Japan or even Brazil, their manufacturing activity has, both in terms of GDP as well as in terms of their employment, they have increased manyfold from India. So it's a challenge for the country how we can shift labor force from agriculture to manufacturing. Why manufacturing? As I already said, manufacturing activity is that activity, especially MSME, where you require lesser amount of investment, but that is capable of generating more avenues for employment, and the employment there is sustainable. This is all I had to share about the different industrial policies of India right from 1947 till date. If anyone has any questions, any doubts, you can send me an email or uh, text me at 94191 86088, or you can log on to www.nansifoundation.in. Thank you.